There could be some serious fireworks on the debate stage in South Carolina tonight. Democratic frontrunner Bernie Sanders is going up against 6 other candidates for the party's presidential nomination, and he'll likely be the prime target for most of them. It's a crucial week in the campaign with a primary on Saturday in that state and Super Tuesday just a week away. The CBC's Katie Simpson is in our Washington bureau. So Katie, set up the scene for tonight's debate, because I watched last week when Michael Bloomberg was the target, and oh boy, did he ever take a beating. A lot of people felt that way. So who has the most to lose tonight?
Well, with the most to lose is going to be former Vice President Joe Biden, but make no mistake, it will be Bernie Sanders, who is the main target of everybody else on that stage. He has a clear stat. He's clearly positioned himself as the front runner with wins in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. And so everyone will be taking aim at him. But what will be important to watch, former Vice President Joe Biden desperately needs a standout moment tonight, or some sort of momentum heading into Saturday's primary in South Carolina. He's had a very poor showing so far, and he's really set up this week's primary as a make or break moment for his own campaign. He has repeatedly described South Carolina as his firewall state, the place where essentially he hopes that the bleeding of support will finally stop. The reason why he says that is because that Joe Biden, through his years as a lawmaker and as vice president, he really took great efforts to try and build communities or build ties into diverse communities, particularly with African American supporters. CBS News estimates that 60% of voters who will be taking part in the Democratic primary on Saturday are African American. And so Joe Biden is hoping that the African American community will show up for him on Saturday and give him a desperately needed win. If he's going to build any sort of credibility to demonstrate that, yes, he is able to build momentum, he is able to attract supporters, a broad coalition that he says he will be able to create, he needs evidence that he can do that. And so far, there's no evidence of that. But on the stage tonight, everyone will be taking aim at Bernie Sanders. His clear frontrunner status will make him the obvious target, and everyone will be doing whatever they can to try and take a peg off him.
All right, so Katie, what is that? What are the other candidates doing to try and trip up Sanders?
Well, we're starting to see some of those attacks right now, and it's getting pretty divisive. Have a listen to something that the Biden campaign released digitally in South Carolina.
When we rallied together to defend our president and all the progress he made, they had his back, he had his back, and you had his back. But back in Washington, there was one guy with another plan.
I think it would be a good idea if President Obama faced some primary opposition.
So the way that the Biden campaign is trying to position this is that Bernie Sanders was trying to get in the way of Barack Obama's re-election in 2012, trying to show some distance between Barack Obama, who of course is a very popular former president, and Bernie Sanders there, and that's his approach. From former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, we're seeing attacks on something that Bernie Sanders said over the weekend during an episode of 60 Minutes. He sat down for an interview with Anderson Cooper and spoke about some things that he said were positive that came out of the regime of Fidel Castro in Cuba. Now, the reason those comments, just to start, are going to be controversial, number one, but number two, in an election year, in the state of Florida, which is a crucial battleground state, that state has a very large Cuban population, with many thousands and thousands of people fleeing the regime of Fidel Castro, making a new life in the United States. And so those comments are not going over very well in that community. Mayor Pete Buttigieg is trying to seize on that moment and really take Senator Sanders to task over that, saying it's going to cause problems in a much bigger, wider contest in the general election. And then there's former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He's going after Bernie Sanders for his record on guns. And let's pull up a tweet. It's one of several tweets that the Bloomberg team has put out about this issue. It says, the NRA paved the road to Washington for Bernie Sanders. He spent the next 3 decades making sure they got a return on their investment. "We deserve a president who is not beholden to the gun lobby." So this tweet makes reference to some things that happened back in the 90s. Back in 1990, the Bloomberg campaign accuses Bernie Sanders of accepting some support from the NRA in 1990, and that Bernie Sanders has a mixed record voting when it comes to gun protections. Michael Bloomberg has made gun control a major issue for him, and so he'll bring that up again tonight.
Lots to watch for, Katie. Thank you. The CBC's Katie Simpson live in Washington.